Well, I do think that Sussex Overdrive is unbelievable. But I mean, I don't think that he is going to get back in, which showed that he is very commercially minded, which we'll get into later on, which makes it impossible for him. And of course, Meghan wouldn't come back to Britain.
Harry and Meghan, the other side, smiling and all the rest of it.
Is that Meghan has got no real income anymore. She's finished.
Right.
The Netflix series is over. There's no great podcast. They don't generate any money. And I don't see where she is going from here. I think she has a major problem.
It was Meghan speaking, and now we know it's Meghan speaking again. And so this isn't because the book contains that her brand was in great trouble. American Riviera Orchard, that she had allegedly nicked the idea. She wanted wealth and she wanted fame. And she targeted, there's no doubt she targeted Harry. And that was very critical because at that moment last year, she was about to promote her Netflix series and didn't want to firstly be seen with Harry, and secondly didn't want to go somewhere where she'd appear cheap. Declining, I think that his reputation is somewhat toxic, and I think Invictus is his only lifeline, and that's what she used as a weapon at the time. So there were quite a few things about her personal life. I'll work them into another book, I think. Meghan didn't like the surname Mountbatten Windsor. If you remember, in her first lifestyle series with Meghan with Them Forever, she says to Carling that her surname isn't Markle but Sussex. And she was desperate to get it. She said, we never had a proper surname. Of course they did. By not telling the palace what she's going to do. And I think the most interesting story is the Reitman story. Reitman's is like a Marks and Spencer's in Canada.
In Revenge, you talk about how Meghan's lack of knowledge about British history meant she could not understand that Diana had won the public's affection. She was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice. For two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted. And secondly, I don't believe she ever intended to stay. She always intended to take the title, take the connections and get back to California.
There are times when someone's public image doesn't just weaken, it completely breaks apart. And Tom Bower says that breaking point has already arrived. For years, Meghan Markle shaped her reputation around carefully crafted stories, personal hardship, royal mistreatment, emotional pain, and the idea that she was misunderstood by a harsh world. But Bower, one of the toughest biographers working today, says reality is finally catching up.
To Meghan's agenda, and Meghan's living with Meghan is very different than living with Kate and William. Meghan has a completely different attitude, and I think California has a different attitude. So I think we're now seeing a different Harry, and to his misfortune, it is not a Harry that appeals to the same sort of people in the same numbers as previously.
His new disclosures don't just reveal contradictions, they reveal intention. An intention built on rewriting memories, using sympathy as a weapon, and twisting facts until they match the version she wants to promote. And the fresh evidence he presents, it's harsh. He says Meghan didn't only stretch the truth, she redesigned it. She profited from royal titles, exaggerated childhood difficulties, shifted timelines, erased people who supported her, and claimed victimhood whenever her own choices created consequences.
What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was chaired as a working royal, it wasn't because she was Meghan Markle, it was because she represented British royalty.
And now the public isn't accepting the performance anymore. Bower calls this the stage where everything falls apart. The image, the narrative, the illusion. Because after the mask drops, it never comes back on. He says the untruths are coming undone and the proof is finally surfacing. And today, we're going to break down exactly what he exposed.
I think there was that, but I've got to tell you, my research for my new book, the number of times she was warned before she married what the nature of being Harry's wife and part of the royal family would be, and the nature of how she ignored all that advice. For two reasons. One is she really did believe she could do what she wanted.
Tom Bower isn't just another commentator offering opinions from the outside. He's the man influential people seriously fear. For decades, he has built a career on digging where others avoid, speaking with those who were silenced, and uncovering hypocrisy among the powerful. His books on prime ministers, billionaires, and royals have destroyed polished PR systems completely. And here's the detail most people overlook. Meghan and Harry never sued him, not once, for two individuals who threaten legal action over headlines, jokes, comments, posts, and even parodies. Why avoid Bauer? Because he documents everything. Because he interviews people they hoped the world would never hear from. Because he keeps proof.
See, Meghan loves money. Meghan's very commercial. She doesn't want to be poor. And then having got all that, she then saw how she needed a consort, a husband who was going to take her to the next stage. And she was on a manhunt, there's no doubt. I mean, there's nothing wrong with being on a manhunt. There are women hunts too, but I mean, she was determined.
And most importantly, because he can verify every claim. Bauer isn't emotional about Meghan. He doesn't exaggerate to shock his audience. His influence comes from being calm, factual, and persistent. When he says something isn't true, he says it with proof. Records, witnesses, timelines, inconsistencies, insiders who watched events directly. This is why his new comments land harder than anything Meghan's critics ever said. They're not insults. They're not guesses. They're not rumors. They're confirmation.
She is desperate to be seen.
Yeah.
And that's why she turned up. So I think she has a major problem, financially and professionally. And I think that Harry has a problem.
And according to Bauer, the downfall started the moment Meghan tried to profit from the Queen's personal nickname. Tom Bauer calls this one of the lowest actions Meghan and Harry ever carried out. And the public response shows exactly why. It wasn't just rude. It was calculated. Bauer says Meghan and Harry had already secured the Lilibet domain name before even notifying the Queen about their daughter's birth. The nickname Lilibet wasn't simply a sweet family label. It was meaningful. It belonged to the Queen's childhood, used only by her parents, her husband, and a tiny group she trusted deeply. And instead of treating it with respect, the Sussexes turned it into a business tool. Bauer explained that when Harry claimed he had asked the Queen for approval, the palace stepped in and quietly told the BBC the truth.
To create her own brand and image in the whole Netflix series, of lifestyle series. She was told she had to give up being the Wicked Witch in terms of the royal family. She should put that all behind her and not mention them because people want to see her, not all the time complaining. She couldn't resist. Because in the end, one of Meghan's many deficiencies is she has nothing to say. There's no originality.
He didn't ask. He informed them. The Queen was outraged, and for the palace to correct Harry publicly, something they almost never do, meant the evidence was undeniable. When Harry tried threatening legal action to pressure the BBC into withdrawing the report, the palace still refused. They told the BBC, "Don't apologize. What we said is accurate." This wasn't confusion. This wasn't a mix-up. This was a deliberate choice that revealed exactly how Meghan and Harry viewed the monarchy, as a promotional asset. And according to Bauer, this single act sparked the beginning of their credibility downfall. If there is one topic that reveals Meghan's habit of reshaping truth, Tom Bauer says it's her handling of her own father.
Whereas Meghan always has to fight for a place. She has to fight for the spotlight. She has to fight to be seen. And being seen is critical to her. And, she can't, if there's another shooting, she can't fly there as she did.
Not because it's emotional, but because the facts don't match the version she repeats. Bauer explains that Meghan created a story of a lonely, difficult childhood. Low-cost meals, cheap salad bars, coming home to an empty house, an absent parent. It sounded upsetting. It sounded like a movie script. But it wasn't real. In truth, Thomas Markle paid for elite private schooling, pricey ballet training, photography programs, designer outfits, and a lifestyle above what most American families could ever afford. He picked her up after school, drove her to auditions, funded her car, her college, and every dream she wanted to pursue.
In California, I can actually sue to see them, but I don't want to do that. And the other thing is, I've done nothing wrong. There's nothing that points and he says I'm a bad guy. As a matter of fact, I'm a really loving father, and she knows that. And there's no excuse for her to treat me this way. No excuse to treat the king that way as well.
Tom Bauer calls the Oprah interview the moment the story fractured. And he isn't overstating it. It was a worldwide broadcast, perfectly staged, perfectly styled, a confessional designed to recast Meghan and Harry as sympathetic victims of a ruthless monarchy. But Bauer says it collapsed the moment the facts were reviewed. He identifies 17 verified inaccuracies in that interview. 17. Not small mistakes, not unclear memories, contradictions. One major example. Meghan said she and Harry secretly married 3 days before the royal wedding. Bauer notes the timeline made that impossible. The Archbishop confirmed it never occurred. They weren't married early. They weren't exchanging vows in a hidden backyard moment. That entire claim was a story, nothing else.
And she gets into one of the best university colleges of America, Northwestern, because of her education and background. So by no means anything other than a happy childhood, although a broken family.
Then came the racial suggestion, the dramatic claim that a senior royal questioned what color Archie's skin might be. Bauer explains Meghan attached this false allegation to a dispute about Archie not receiving a title, hoping the two issues would appear connected, but they weren't. The rules were already written long before Meghan joined the family. Archie wasn't entitled to a prince title, and it had nothing to do with race. And then the emotional point, Meghan insisting she was denied support when she needed it most. Bauer says the palace had records proving she had staff, physicians, and advisors available. For Bauer, the Oprah interview didn't expose the royals. It exposed Meghan. Tom Bauer says the Australia tour was the real turning point.
And of course, they're not allowed to come to the dinner after the wedding. I mean, people whom he'd known for years. And even at the wedding of Tommy Inskip in Jamaica, one of the parents who was there told me that Meghan had behaved appallingly. They just couldn't understand why Harry was going out with her. She didn't like the food, she didn't like them.
The moment Meghan's expectations collided with royal duty, to the public, the visit looked like a huge success. Fans cheering, glowing coverage, perfect photos. But behind the scenes, Bauer uncovered a completely different reality. He spoke with staff who handled the tour, and their stories were blunt. Meghan, according to several team members, acted like a celebrity expecting superstar treatment, not a royal representative. She reportedly had outbursts, snapped at assistants, demanded instant changes, and even caused the now famous tea-throwing incident that stunned the staff who witnessed it. But the deeper issue, Bauer says, was psychological. Meghan believed the crowds were cheering for her, only her. She convinced herself she was already Diana-level iconic, a figure meant for the spotlight. And then she recognized something she disliked. She would always be below William and Catherine, not because of race, not because of jealousy, but because of royal structure.
I do think that the Australian trip turned their head in a crazy way, although she behaved appallingly during the trip.
Yeah.
But in Harry's view, this was his mother all over again. What Meghan never really understood, probably not even now, is that when she was cheered as a working royal,
an old system she never bothered to understand. Bauer says that moment planted the seed. Meghan didn't want to be a secondary figure. She didn't want to walk behind anyone else, and she especially didn't want to be overshadowed by Catherine's natural popularity. According to Bauer, this is where Meghan's escape plan formed. Long before Netflix, long before Oprah, long before the tears and accusations, this was when she realized royal life would never center on her. According to Tom Bauer, one of the most shocking betrayals didn't take place on camera. It happened before the cameras were even rolling. While the world watched the Queen's funeral and hoped for unity, Bauer says Harry and Meghan had already taped their accusations for the Netflix show. Not drafted, not outlined, recorded, edited, finished. When Harry and Meghan joined William and Catherine outside Windsor Castle, the world saw harmony, sadness, and a fragile moment of peace. What William didn't know, what no one knew,
was that the couple beside him had already filmed hours of criticism.
Meghan believed she was as important to the monarchy as Princess Diana, you write in the book, and her visit to Australia in October 2018 only boosted that view. The more Harry drew parallels with his mother, and the more Meghan must have been convinced of her importance to the monarchy. Do you still think she's that delusional?
Complaints and personal attacks aimed at the very people he stood mourning with. Bauer calls it a cold, intentional deception. Harry greeted supporters while knowing his own voice was already recorded, accusing Charles of lying, William of shouting, in the monarchy of damaging his mental health. This wasn't confusion, it was tactic. Bauer says Harry had done something similar at Prince Philip's funeral, acting friendly while secretly preparing to release yet another round of harmful accusations. But the Netflix betrayal felt worse, because this time it wasn't only Harry criticizing the institution, it was him doing it during a period of mourning while pretending to seek peace. Bauer's conclusion is harsh. This wasn't pain. This was deception. Tom Bauer says one of the clearest patterns in Meghan's life is her repeated reinvention, shifting identities, polished stories, and carefully planned symbolism meant to raise her image. And according to Bauer, this isn't confidence, it's construction. He reveals that Meghan began shaping herself after Princess Diana long before the public noticed the similarities. The outfits, the jewelry, the photo angles, the emotional phrasing, even the misunderstood woman narrative mirrored Diana's legacy.
And what I really thought at the end of it as well was this, which I think is a very, very pertinent point. When they came across for the Queen's funeral, and there was that amazing scene outside the castle of meeting the well-wishers in the walk, there was always talk of reconciliation. Charles and William and Kate go one side, Harry and Meghan the other side, smiling and all the rest of it. But at that time, William didn't know that Harry and Meghan had already recorded their poison for Netflix. It was already edited. All the stuff that we heard today about Charles lying, about William screaming and shouting, was in the can, was being edited. And they duplicitly did not reveal what they were going to.
But Bauer discovered something even more surprising. Allegedly, Meghan and Harry asked Earl Spencer, Diana's brother, if they could adopt the Spencer surname, not as a tribute, but as their own family name. Bauer says Meghan wanted a brand identity that connected her directly to Diana, avoiding the Windsor name entirely. She disliked Mountbatten Windsor, claiming it didn't suit her children. She reportedly wanted Spencer because she understood exactly what it represented: status, sorrow, legacy, emotion, and worldwide attention. But Charles Spencer immediately refused. Bauer interprets his refusal as a warning. The Spencer family did not want their name attached to Meghan's future controversies or a marriage many insiders believed wouldn't last. This wasn't about heritage. It was about image, a created persona crafted to imitate Diana's glow without earning what made Diana beloved: kindness, compassion, and sincere service. For Bauer, Meghan's attempts to copy Diana weren't respectful, they were unsettling. Tom Bauer says the collapse didn't happen suddenly. It was slow, visible, and unavoidable. After years of dramatic interviews, emotional speeches, staged photos, and constant victim claims, the world began doing something Meghan never expected.
In Meghan's mind, she is Diana.
Yes.
I mean, Diana Spencer is Meghan Spencer. And that was all part of her imagination, that somehow she could inherit the glow of her dead mother-in-law. So I think that was another reason for Charles to say no.
They began checking the facts. Hollywood backed away first. Producers, advisors, and studios quietly created distance. Bauer explains they didn't want to risk relationships with the royal family or be pulled into Meghan's ongoing drama. Invitations stopped coming. Partnerships paused. Then came the media cracks. Outlets that once praised her started releasing uncomfortable details. Vanity Fair, The Cut, The Hollywood Reporter, even publications once friendly to her, stopped repeating her claims without proof. Spotify canceled the podcast deal with a blunt public remark. Netflix reduced future commitments. Archewell's charitable results dropped to embarrassing levels, and public support collapsed. In the US, their approval numbers fell further than ever. In the UK, they reached record lows. And in Australia, a country Meghan believed adored her, people now openly reject them. Bauer says none of this happened because of racism, envy, or royal schemes.
Because when she phoned up the two senators to campaign for women's maternity pay, she said, hello, this is Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex.
Yeah,
I mean, she plays the royal card the whole time. So I don't think that would play well in the election for Congress or even the Senate. So I think they've got to realign their image. I mean, I think in any case, they're burning out their royal status pretty fast now.
It happened because people finally recognized the pattern. Stories that didn't make sense, details that shifted to fit the situation, emotions used as protection, blame placed on everyone except the storyteller. Meghan and Harry didn't lose support instantly. They lost it gradually, every time a new contradiction appeared. And every time Bauer revealed another truth the public was never meant to hear. According to him, we're watching the final stages now, and the unraveling is only speeding up. After years of investigation, interviews, leaked papers, insider accounts, and private conversations behind palace walls, Tom Bauer saves his strongest judgment for last. And it's harsh. He says Meghan has reached a stage where no storyline can rescue her. Not a new interview, not a new rebrand, not a lifestyle show, and not another emotional speech about being misunderstood.
So I think they've got a real identity crisis, which will be resolved in the next few months, one way or another. I don't think it can be to the good. But the point about it is, you see, they're notorious.
The public has already seen too much. The inconsistencies are too clear. The contradictions too constant. The manipulation too visible. According to Bauer, Meghan's downfall isn't because she made mistakes. It's because she repeated the same behavior again and again, rewriting events, shifting responsibility, claiming victimhood when challenged, and criticizing anyone who refused to support the story she wanted told. Bauer says the collapse we're witnessing isn't random. It's expected. Media deals are slowing down. The royal connection is broken. Hollywood is creating distance. Public sympathy is gone. And the one message she kept repeating, the "I was wronged" message, doesn't work anymore. But Bauer's final point cuts even deeper. He says Meghan's biggest problem isn't the public, the press, the palace, or even Harry. It's that she built an entire global brand around a version of herself that couldn't survive the truth. And once the truth appears, once proof exposes the lies, there is nothing left to guard the image she created. Bauer believes the next year will reveal everything, not because Meghan speaks, but because the world finally stops listening.
She wanted the cover and control of the content, and they had a huge argument. And that meant that he was really finished with her. He'd had enough of her prima donna behavior, and that's why he's dumped her. But also, I mean, from his point of view, what does she now bring? There isn't anything original. There's no great sales point there. And I think you've got to look at something else. You mentioned at the beginning, Sam Kashner.